Should you play Dune Awakening solo? Honest review after 150 hours. You probably found this video because you're either wondering if the game is worth buying, or maybe you already own it and you want to know what's waiting for you in the late game. I've played Dune Awakening solo for over 150 hours, so you don't have to. Now, that's a freaking sandworm. It looks awesome. They're shooting rockets on it. According to Steam Spy, the average playtime since the official release of Dune Awakening is just 14 hours. I have played over 150 hours solo, and trust me, the solo experience is nothing like what most players see in their first 14 hours. It takes roughly 80 hours to even reach the deep desert, meaning most players are still far from seeing what Dune's endgame actually looks like. The different chapters in this video are timestamped, so feel free to jump around or skip ahead. Still, I recommend watching it in order. That way, you will get the full context and understand which parts of the game might change and why. So lean back. Let me take you through my solo journey. The highs, the lows, and everything in between. By the end, you will know if Dune Awakening solo is the right game for you. I'll break this down into 7 chapters, so you know exactly what to expect as a solo player. The state of the game, what the current version means for the player experience, and what the future might hold. At the time of this video, Dune Awakening officially released just about 3 weeks ago, and it's still very early in its life cycle. There was no open early access or large-scale testing phase before the launch, especially for PvP. That means we are likely to see major changes over the next few weeks and months. According to Steam Spy, the average playtime per player is around 14 hours, which means most players have not even come close to reaching the deep desert, let alone the true endgame. To put it in perspective, if that playtime stays consistent, the average player will reach the deep desert in about 2 months, maybe longer. And since casual players make up the vast majority of the player base, the moment they start entering the late game zones, the entire experience will shift. For them, but also for everyone else who already reached the deep desert. Now keep this in mind. My solo experience is based on the current state of the game, at a time when hardly anyone else has made it that far. That changes the entire dynamic of the game, especially for solo players. It also means that the devs are still collecting data, especially around balance. We can safely expect changes as more players reach higher tiers. In fact, the developers already confirmed that a lot is going to change. In a recent Reddit thread, creative director Joel Bylos said, "We are working on a bunch of changes and fixes. Please bear with us." Some changes have been announced recently. More on that later in the video, but as you will see, my core concerns as a solo player remain unaffected. My progress and experience. What I've done, what I've seen, and what you can realistically expect as a solo. Over the course of my solo journey, I reached level 164 and unlocked every available class, including Trooper, Mentat, Swordmaster, Bene Gesserit and Planetologist, along with their full skill trees. I maxed out my reputation with the House Harkonnen faction and farmed several thousand intel points, which are used to unlock schematics in the tech tree. Eventually, I was upgrading both my gear and my Ornithopter to tier 6, the highest tier currently available. To get there, I had to grind the deep desert, the game's most dangerous but also most rewarding zone. Along the way, I encountered PvP teams of all sizes, but as you will see later, fighting other players as a solo is not exactly worth it. So yes, I've seen nearly every part of the game, including the very late game grind. I know what's doable alone and where you will struggle as a solo player. The solo gameplay loop. What daily life looks like when you play alone. Exploring, farming, and PvP. The deep desert is massive, a 9x9 grid made up of 81 zones. To explore it, you have to launch survey probes into each individual square. The problem? The desert wipes every week. That means 81 probes every week, just to find new loot zones again. It's tedious and time consuming, especially for solos, since you have to do everything else yourself too. That's time you would much rather spend actually progressing. Farming is the core of the game, and spice is everything. It's used for crafting, upgrading, PvP, base building. Literally every endgame activity depends on it. As a solo, you spend most of your time flying across the desert, looking for spice spots, manually scooping it off the ground, while constantly checking for sandworms and enemies. Now, in theory, there's a better way. You can build a sandcrawler, a machine that harvests spice much faster. To operate a sandcrawler effectively, you typically need one player and a carrier ornithopter to transport it, one to drive the sandcrawler, one to drop thumpers which shake the ground and distract the sandworm, ideally a fourth to watch for enemies. In short, it's not made for solos. You can try it solo, but it's extremely inefficient. You can't control the carrier, the sandcrawler, and drop thumpers all at once. Your window to harvest is tiny. And even if you succeed for a minute or two, the worm will destroy the sandcrawler in a single hit. Replacing it takes time. Easily 2 full days of farming, just for another short attempt. If a group finds you, you lose both carrier and sandcrawler. It's just not worth the risk. So you give up on that dream early and go back to grabbing spice by hand for hours and hours. That's the loop. Every now and then you'll switch it up, farming titanium, stravidium or water, all required for repairs and base crafting. Even just flying around causes your ornithopter to degrade over time. Every repair reduces its max durability, which means that even without PvP, you will eventually need to rebuild it from scratch. And to do that, you go back to NPC camps. In the latest announcement from the developers revealing their plans for the game, they said, "It's important to note that the top tier of the game is balanced around guilds and groups, so people will still find it grindy if they play solo." That's certainly accurate, although from a solo player's perspective, grindy doesn't fully capture the level of repetition and time investment involved. Unfortunately, the latest patch made the solo life even worse. The PvE area has been adjusted to encompass the entire southern half of the deep desert map. That means you are now able to farm safely in the deep desert. But the density of resources increases the further north you go. The number of nodes in the PvE part of the map has been reduced. The largest spice fields will also spawn in the north. You may find better loot in the more dangerous PvP area located further north on the map. Players who want all schematics available each week will want to visit both the PvP and the PvE Imperial testing stations. On paper, this makes sense. For a solo player, it means you are progressing even slower than before. Instead of large groups spreading all over the entire deep desert, they are now concentrated in the northern half of the map, which basically locks you out of that area completely. But it gets worse. In the PvP area, loot is distributed with higher quantities of everything. Players can expect to find 2 to 6 schematics there, which are among the rarest. The spawn rate of titanium and stravidium has been reduced in the PvE areas, so that large quantities only spawn in the far-out PvP areas. In short, not only are larger groups farming way faster than you, the game now even punishes you for farming the PvE area of the deep desert. They have more people, more resource nodes, and even the PvE is giving them more loot. While you get 1 schematic, they will get 2 to 6 schematics for doing the exact same thing. You are scraping the sand with a spoon. They are plowing through it with bulldozers. Or sandcrawlers. Call it what you want. As I mentioned earlier, most players have not reached the deep desert yet. In 8 hours of solo gameplay, I usually ran into 2 or 3 enemy teams total. If you're a PvP hunter like me, that's really disappointing. The problem is, there are no PvP hotspots. You can't just go to a certain area and find a fight. All PvP is incidental. You run into someone while you're farming. That's it. And even then, most of the time you have to run. To make meaningful progress, you need a storage module on your ornithopter. But if you equip storage, you can't equip a rocket launcher, the only aerial weapon. You have to choose, storage or rockets, progress or defense. Sure, technically you could land, detach the storage, throw everything on the ground that was in it, attach your rocket launcher and load it with rockets. But trust me, by the time you do that, you are dead. Your only real option is this. Fly out with rocket launcher and rockets attached. And the moment you start looting, switch to storage. From that point on, you can't fight anymore. If someone shows up, you run. And the sandworm? Once you understand its behavior, it's not a threat anymore. I spent over 150 hours in this game and I was never eaten once. Some things regarding PvP in the deep desert are about to change. Quoting from the latest developer announcement. Starting soon, some areas of the deep desert will be flagged as partial warfare PvE areas. For solo players, this means you'll be able to retreat to nearby safe zones, instead of flying all the way back to the deep desert's entry zone, which is PvE as well. While this might just save your life when fleeing from larger groups, keep in mind, it works both ways. If you find another solo and want to fight, they can just fly into a safe zone and disappear. The developers wrote, if you're smart and vigilant, you'll never have to fight if you don't want to. If you run, you'll have to call a halt to whatever task you're pursuing, but that should always be a choice. PvP should happen when both parties decide they want to fight over a location. And we will keep adding endgame activities and more PvE content to the game going forward. More dungeons, more contracts, more specialized delivery tasks. In other words, PvE is being expanded. You'll be a little safer while farming, and PvP is becoming even less likely to happen. Happy grinding. Solo viable content. Everything that's totally doable without a group. Not everything is painful when playing solo. In fact, a lot of the early and mid-game PvE content works surprisingly well on your own. Questing and progression before reaching the deep desert is straightforward. You can farm NPC camps to unlock new tech without any issue. The enemies there don't require coordination or special tactics. Unlocking all 5 class skill trees is mostly a matter of flying around and completing missions. It takes time, sure, but you never need another player to get it done. The same goes for building up your faction reputation. It's just another grind, and one that works perfectly solo. Even your base is completely manageable alone. Since you're not preparing for big raids or sharing it with teammates, you can keep it compact and efficient. A small, well-placed solo base is more than enough, at least until you enter the late-game PvP zones. So pretty much everything in the PvE area is solo-friendly. But once you leave that bubble, well, that's when the real game begins. And that's when your experience will change. Solo pain points. Where solo's gonna struggle, or what simply is not possible without teammates. The grind in Dune Awakening is extremely time intensive, and the more players you have, the more efficient you become. As a solo, you can absolutely progress to tier 6, the current endgame, and enemies won't outscale you in power. But here's the problem: resource sustainability. While you're farming alone, the 4-man group is not just farming 4 times faster, but exponentially faster, thanks to shared logistics and automation tools like water catchers. Let's make this more clear with an example. Let's say you come across a duo and decide to take the 1v2 fight. What you have to understand is, this is not about winning the fight. It's about surviving long term, and that comes down to who can sustain their PvP loadout longer, which means gear and ornithopters. In the end, it's a game of resources. PvP isn't just win or lose, it's a trade. When fighting a duo, you need to inflict at least twice as much damage to come out ahead, and even then, the math is not in your favor. Why? Because a duo collects resources more than twice as fast as you, thanks to shared logistics, automated farming tools, and better time efficiency. Simple example: if you destroy one of their ornithopters and yours takes 50% damage, that's an even trade. If you destroy one and damage the second one by 50%, but yours gets destroyed, you still lose the trade. While you're grinding for a full rebuild, they are farming for 2 replacements. You would be behind half an ornithopter. And the worst part, it's not even worth taking the risk. Dune doesn't have full loot PvP, so you almost never get back the resources that you lost through taking damage. PvP here is all about controlling resources, not stealing them. There's also one extreme case. If someone gets eaten by the sandworm, they lose everything: gear, inventory, ornithopter. That's the only full loss mechanic in the entire game. Getting someone eaten by the sandworm is the most devastating thing that can happen. And yes, it's a PvP tactic. The worm appears automatically when players move across open sand, so skilled groups will try to stall or disable their enemies just long enough for the worm to arrive. For a team, this is a calculated trade, but for a solo, it's catastrophic. You lose your gear, your vehicle, your resources, and rebuilding all of that will take dozens of hours. So even this ultimate PvP outcome is yet another system that punishes solo players far more than groups. Bottom line, as a solo, picking fights is rarely worth it. The risk-reward ratio is awful, and most of the time, you're better off running than fighting. Unlike many survival or extraction games, Dune Awakening doesn't let you actively seek out PvP in any reliable way. There are no hotspots, no designated conflict zones, and no rotating objectives that guarantee player clashes. And definitely no areas where solos can fight each other for fair 1v1 fights. You're always out farming, and sometimes you randomly run into someone else doing the same. That's it. PvP isn't something you can aim for. It just happens, or it doesn't. The Landthread is a weekly PvE event, where Atreides and Harkonnen fight for control by completing objectives on a 5x5 bingo board. The first to complete 5 in a row earns the right to vote on a gameplay affecting legislation. Sounds like something you could contribute to as a solo? Not really. You cannot compete with guilds who stockpile resources and speedrun objectives within hours. No, the devs have acknowledged the problem. They said, "We are addressing some key flaws. Stockpiling is currently rewarded, but that is not our intention for the system. The Landthread will be updated to provide micro rewards for solo and small group players." Yes, micro rewards. That's what solos can look forward to. While large guilds still get to decide how the world works, you still have no real influence on the outcome. But hey, at least now you might get a cookie for showing up. Who can have fun as a solo? What kind of players will enjoy Dune Awakening solo, and who probably won't? Let's be real. Not every player will have a good time playing Dune Awakening solo. It depends entirely on what kind of gamer you are and what you're looking for in a survival MMO. Chill PvE enjoyers? Maybe. If you enjoy slow, methodical progress, grinding resources, upgrading gear, building a base, then solo might actually suit you. But keep in mind, you will spend most of your time farming. You will need to flee often when you meet other players, and you won't be able to access some of the bigger mechanics like the Sandcrawler or Lance Rat. So yes, it can be peaceful, but be ready to run. Tryhards? No. If you love optimizing everything, min-maxing builds and staying on top of progression, then solo play will frustrate you, no matter how good you are. Larger groups will always outpace you. Losing gear or a copter is a huge setback, one you will feel deeply. Many endgame features are simply more efficient or only viable with teammates. This game is not for solo tryhards. PvP hunters? Definitely no. If your dream is to roam the desert, hunt down other players and engage in fair fights, this is not the game for that, at least not as a solo. The game isn't designed around intentional PvP. There are no PvP hotspots, no matchmaking, no equalized environments. You can't actively look for PvP. You just stumble into it randomly, and almost always outnumbered. When you're farming to stay competitive, you have to run from most encounters. So if you're a PvP-driven player like me, you're going to feel held back. A lot. And since the developers are working on extending the PvE content, this situation doesn't seem to improve. In fact, it gets even worse. Final verdict. My honest conclusion on the solo experience and what I would love to see changed in the future. Let's sum it all up. The gameplay loop revolves entirely around grind. You farm to upgrade your gear. You farm to build your base. You farm to repair your copter, and when that's done, you farm again. This loop can be fun if you like progression. But if you're solo, it's slow, exhausting and repetitive. The game is extremely unbalanced in favor of larger groups. That's not just about PvP, it's about resource efficiency, time and safety. Fighting, farming, transporting, defending, progressing. Everything is easier, faster and safer in a group. As a solo, you always play on hard mode, with little to no reward for the extra effort. What would make a difference? Special servers. Solo-only servers, trio servers, PvP-focused servers with higher risk and reward. Something that gives smaller groups a real chance. Right now, you're just outscaled in every aspect. And yet, it's still a great game. Despite all the problems I've highlighted, Dune Awakening has an incredible foundation. The world feels vast and hostile. Flying over the deep desert, dodging sandworms and scanning for spies. That alone creates a mood that few games can replicate. The atmosphere, the sound design, the art direction. It's all top-notch. Mechanically, the systems are rich. A full tech tree to explore, a dynamic economy, reputation, PvE, PvP, and crafting all tied together. Regular developer updates and community communication. And the class-based skill systems allow to experiment and build your own playstyle. It's clear that the developers are building something massive. Not just a survival game, but a full-scale MMO. And yes, right now it's messy, grind-heavy and unbalanced. But that doesn't mean it will stay that way. My review is harsh, because I played solo. And for solo players, the experience is frustrating and often unrewarding. But for teams and for the future of the game, there's a lot of potential. I'll be keeping an eye on it, and I truly hope they manage to bring it to where it deserves to be. But for now, I uninstalled Dune Awakening, and I don't miss it. This was my very first video ever. If you enjoyed it or it helped you decide whether Dune Awakening is the right game for you, consider leaving a like. I'm planning to create more informative but also funny videos in the future, so maybe leave a sub if you don't want to miss them. I'm also streaming regularly on Twitch and YouTube. Drop by, tell me about your solo experience in Dune, or just hang out and have a good time. And now, a few clips of my best moments in Dune. See you soon. Neo, out. Oh yes, let's go!
You wanna farm some spice? Spice. Spice.
Let's talk. Let's talk.
Nah, dude, get some aim.
Very good.
Guys, this is fucking shameless. Fuck off, man.
Last game.
Better. Yo, okay. Okay, bro. What the fuck? Did I get the first ground fight? Oh my god, he's dead! And he's dead again! Get fucked, baby! Oh, no! And he just respawned in the helicopter. This game is fucking dumb. This is so freaking dumb, dude. I don't take your time for granted. If you're still here, that means a lot to me.